Good evening. It's been a very busy and tragic day. I'm Tim Seaman.
And I'm Jenna Rehnstrom. It has been an active weather day, of course, across Siouxland. We know of one person killed in this afternoon storms in northeast Nebraska. And
several more, unfortunately, critically injured as well. Tonight, we bring you team coverage of what's taken place the last several hours across northeast Nebraska. One of the hardest hit communities today was the small town of Pilger.
That is where we find our Allison Warren. She's standing by live with more on what's left of the town. Allison, what can you tell us?
Jenna and Tim, I am at the roadblock here on Highway 275, about a mile and a half outside Pilger, Nebraska. When we arrived here around 7:30, we were allowed to make that trek on foot, and we did get to go into town a little bit. We weren't allowed to walk around the devastation. We could see it down the road. We could see houses completely flattened, but EMS crews have kind of set up a command post in town. We were allowed there for a little while. We've since been pushed back to this original roadblock. But when we were down there, we spoke to EMS crews. They actually said they had too much help. They've had so many people coming in. Pilger, though, absolutely devastated by this tornado. Crews actually told us that though the water tower is still standing, that's a rarity. 50 to 75% of the town, they would estimate, is destroyed.
And subsequently, we know it did strike several residences in the area northwest and north of Stanton. The first residence that I made it to, we had 5 people trapped in the basement of a house. The entire house was destroyed. The entire farm was destroyed, and they collapsed on those 5, including 3 small children. Their homes, businesses, it's hard to describe. Those that know Pilger are going to be in a total shock when they see the actual damage. We've had an absolute outpouring of other agencies, law enforcement, EMS. We have state agencies on hand. I'm sure there'll be some federal action taken later in the week. But it's been wonderful having an overwhelming number of people here, actually probably too many.
Including residents back into the town until at least tomorrow morning. But like I said, just total devastation here. But we will continue to check in on this situation. Jenna and Tim, back to you.
All right, thank you, Allison. Again, those were the comments of Stanton County Sheriff Mike Unger from a little bit earlier today as the operation there was really beginning to ramp up, no doubt about that. We have additional pictures to show you as well from inside Pilger from today. That's where Governor Dave Heineman will be tomorrow after declaring an emergency for many parts of Nebraska. Heineman will be traveling to Pilger in the morning to sort through that damage. These pictures vividly showing how just how destructive those tornado winds were throughout this afternoon, marching across Nebraska. The video, you can see like one of those shots, the middle school, which was damaged. Homes, just many of them leveled. You just heard Allison mention those high percentages. Nearly 80% perhaps of the community has been destroyed during today's storms, just throwing equipment and vehicles like toys across the landscape there, again from near and inside Pilger, Nebraska from earlier today.
Heather Kneifel was working at the bank in Pilger when the storm hit. She and the other employees took cover in the vault. She describes for us what she saw in downtown Pilger when it was finally safe for them to come out.
After we were able to get out of the vault, had a lot of people rushing around, obviously everywhere, checking on people and helping us get through all the debris. And just saw the town, and it was just leveled. It was just devastating looking around everything. And homes and our main street is gone, and the co-op is gone, and it's just very scary.
Heather says emergency management told everyone to go back to their homes after that or to a shelter earlier this evening to make sure they could account for everyone.
And as you might guess, not only inside the community, but the surrounding area there at Pilger and Wisner and Stanton, all of those areas seeing destruction throughout this afternoon's storms. Want to show you some more pictures and more video. Again, this is from near Pilger. Again, perhaps more rural setting for the damages with trees, farm equipment, all being destroyed. Grain bins thrown around as well, toppled, and roofs taken off of farm buildings and machinery sheds. We ran into one man who was he's now staying, I should say, at friends at a home there in Wisner. His home was completely destroyed with he and 2 friends huddled up in the basement at the time.
The siding started going, and then all the shingles started blowing through my yard. I watched my hot tub slide, and then everything lifted off of us, and the heater smashed over me and my buddy. we yelled at my buddy Donnie because me and my buddy Ethan were pinned in between the two bricks off the bottom of our basement. And we looked back at Donnie, and we thought he was gone for a long time. We kept yelling at him, and then we dug him out and pulled the wood off him, pulled the bricks off, and drug him out. And the three of us somehow, we're all fine. It killed my dog.
Again, that's Josh Staub. He lost everything today during that tornado. He is staying with friends tonight, and thankfully, although losing his dog today, he is safe. Our Rachael Krause was in Wisner this evening, where a center has been set up for victims who did lose their homes.
That's right. She's joining us on the phone now with the details. Rachel, what's it like in Wisner?
Jenna, I'm out at the high school in Wisner, Nebraska, where the superintendent of the Wisner and Pilger School District is partnering with the American Red Cross to open up an emergency shelter for tornado and storm victims. The school is already packed, and donations are pouring in from residents and businesses with Red Cross volunteers on hand to help. And one of the Red Cross volunteers I spoke with, Michelle Austin, lives just outside of Wisner, about 6 miles outside of town. She was home with her husband earlier today with her 1-year-old daughter when the tornado hit. Michelle's husband spotted the massive tornado just behind the house, and both said the tornado was about 1/4 of a mile away and appeared to be at least a 1/2 mile wide, but surprisingly made no sound. They couldn't hear it. They both made it to the basement in time and waited it out there. And after the first tornado passed, her husband noticed a second tornado headed their way. Luckily, the pair made it through with minimal damage to their house, but the feedlot down the road wasn't so lucky. They went down the road later after the storm had passed and saw it had demolished the house. She told me it was easily the scariest day of her life, and she's just counting her blessings that she and her family survived. Jenna?
All right, that's Rachael Krause on the phone for us tonight, and you can only imagine those moments where folks, you know, in our area are coming out of their homes. Thankfully, they're safe, or many of them were, but to see that devastation, and some of these towns just won't look the same for a very long time.
Such small communities to start with, and so much of the community's missing tonight. Of course, these types of days are the ones that the medical field prepares for, but hopes to never have to experience. Both Providence Medical Center in Wayne and Faith Regional Hospital in Norfolk went on standby as soon as it became evident that there were serious injuries. Faith Regional went into code yellow in preparation for mass casualties today. As many as 20 patients were transported to Norfolk, including several from Stanton, Nebraska.
Their house was completely destroyed. They had 5 daycare kids in there and were able to get into the basement and basically got on the kids and kept a furnace from falling on them. But they're keeping my brother overnight, just observing him. All the kids were released earlier.
Again, that's at the Faith Regional Hospital in Norfolk, where 1 fatality was transported and up to 60 critically injured patients were there as of last check.
More patients with injuries from the storm were taken to Providence Medical Center in Wayne, as you heard, and that hospital as well preparing for mass casualties, but they only ended up treating a few patients and they were all released. Still, the day brings back painful memories of the tornado that hit Wayne last October.
We were thinking back a year. In October, the day felt somewhat the same, and then I had left to go see a client and came back in, and I thought, just doesn't feel right out there.
2 nurses from Providence Medical Center were also sent out to neighboring communities to handle triage. And we continue our team coverage now with more from Wakefield, Nebraska.
Our Travis Morgan takes us to a farm near town that was extensively damaged by today's twister.
You know, you always wonder if these things happen to somebody else, not you, but there it was.
At around 5 o'clock, a tornado ripped through John and Linda Sandal's farm 2 miles south of Wakefield, Nebraska. Grain bins crushed like cans, farm equipment thrown like rag dolls, machine sheds ripped apart, their house destroyed. The amazing thing is, John was there for all of it and doesn't have a single scratch.
It got real calm, and then the wind started to come up and got really strong. I went down to the basement, went over in the corner, and I was only down there about 30 seconds, and it got really noisy. My ears started to pop. I'll bet it didn't last more than 15, 20 seconds. I couldn't get up, so I opened the basement window and crawled out the basement window and looked to the west, and my bins back here is what I saw when I first looked out.
Debris from the farm can be found over 3 miles away.
The floor of the house stayed intact, but the grain bins and all the equipment, machine sheds, everything else is gone.
For a family that appears to have lost everything, Linda says only one thing really mattered.
Really, it's just stuff. All I really cared about was that John was okay. And I mean, I know it looks bad, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, he's all right, so.
Yeah, all this stuff we can fix.
Yeah.
Near Wakefield, Nebraska, Travis Morgan, ABC 9 News.
We had a storm chaser stop by our studio and bring us more video of today's storm. We want to show that to you now. Kcau, a storm chaser from Kansas, followed the tornadoes as they tore across Nebraska. Here's a look at what he captured just outside of Pilger. He gives us a really good picture of that tornado that did so much damage across the northeast part of the state. You can also see the after pictures, of course, as he drives through some of the damage in rural Pilger.
And of course, viewers sending us many still pictures of whatnot today as well. I want to show you this from Ruth Ewell. She says this is a tornado debris that dropped out of the sky into her backyard. She lives in Lawton, Iowa. The heading on the piece of paper says it's from Stanton County. Again, talking about just how far some of these pieces of material picked up in the tornadoes can travel. And earlier today, Jen, of course, the story that you had from one person that had found something, the same thing, being transported.
Right. Some folks near Emerson arrived home and their house was fine, but they found pages of a Bible from the Wisner, a church in Wisner.
Just amazing.
I mean, the bizarre things that these storms can do, and of course they cause the widespread damage, and then just those strange little stories just really shows how powerful tornadoes can be.
One report also today from here in Sioux City, a woman that saw a 5-foot piece of sheet metal come flying out of the sky, not knowing for sure where that had come from, but obviously been sucked up by these storms at some point across Nebraska or closer to home. So.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. Fred's going to update you on our weather here first. Fred.
Thank you. We are watching a strong thunderstorm now moving from Ponca to Allen to the east. Heavy rain and some gusty winds. The good news, the severe thunderstorm warning appears to have been dropped with that storm, but it is moving towards Sioux City with lots of lightning, so you can expect heavy rain and lightning around the Sioux City metro in the next half hour or so. I'll be back after the break with the latest look at today's storms, what you can expect for tonight and beyond. Stay with us.
You're watching ABC 9 News at 10 with Tim Seaman, Jenna Rehnstrom, Chief Meteorologist Fred Hexom, and Sports Director Travis Morgan. This is ABC 9 News at 10. Now, your local forecast from Siouxland's weather team.
A strong thunderstorm moving into Sioux City with a very strong lightning, and in fact, this storm has just received a new severe thunderstorm warning. The entire Sioux City metro area is under a severe thunderstorm warning for $half-dollar size hail, and it goes without saying, very strong and dangerous lightning. Damage to vehicles is expected with that $half-dollar size hail as it moves now into Sioux City. Let's see how this all looks on radar. This is the storm that had the warning out toward Ponca and Allen. We had hoped the warning would be dropped, but it has now been reissued. As you can see, the entire Sioux City metro included in this new warning inside the yellow box. So that would be for that large hail as the primary threat. That's going to go until 11 p.m. for Woodbury County, Dakota County, as well as southern parts of Plymouth County and southern Union County, too. This cell here south of Ponca is very strong, and we've had some strong winds with this stormy weather here tonight as well. You can see our radar thinking 1.79-inch hail as that moves straight toward Sioux City. So now is the time in Sioux City to take shelter toward Moville. This warning extends that direction as well. Let's take you to the home view and we'll show you what's going on elsewhere. That's the main show, so to speak, but you can see here west of Norfolk some strong heavy rain and maybe some gusty winds. That's going to be headed right back over the tornado damaged area, unfortunately, it looks like in the next hour or so. So if you are anywhere in the Sioux City metro, you want to take cover right away. The tornado watch has now been clipped even more. Emmett and Palo Alto counties, the only 42 in our area with that tornado watch until midnight, but that has been largely replaced by the severe thunderstorm watch that does include Sioux City until 4 a.m. The main threats here are going to be hail and wind, especially wind as we transition into the overnight. Some very strong and damaging wind gusts will be possible. A flash flood watch remains in effect until midnight tonight. Goes without saying at this point, flash flooding is a real threat. 68 in Sioux City with that strong thunderstorm. The dew point at 64, northeast wind at 20 miles per hour. And as we look at temperatures, still very warm across the south, cool across the north, and of course that temperature boundary will serve to continue to help lift the air and fire those showers and thunderstorms. Looking at dew points, lots of 60s with some 70s to the south, plenty of moisture in the air. That's fuel for the storms as well. And those winds pushing in from the south across southern parts of Siouxland, and some changes in wind direction as they move around those thunderstorms. Let's move out now here to our temperatures across the region, and you can see a warm air to the south, cooler to the north, again that front, and that's firing those showers and thunderstorms. Looking off to the west, things are actually fairly quiet. We're now, though, not looking for new activity to move into our area. What we're looking at is this existing line to become a damaging wind threat with time overnight. So the threat is transitioning away from tornadoes to some degree away from hail, and it'll be a strong wind threat overnight. But in the meantime, the Sioux City Metro again under a warning for the hail. Here is a look at the storm reports over the past 24 hours. You can see the path of destruction of tornadoes through eastern Nebraska. Those eventually, there's the one by Pender. Those eventually moved north toward Hubbard as well. And you can see some hail reports in there too. Across the east, we had some tornado reports too near Plover here late this afternoon. So that's the tornado reports. Hail in the green and wind damage and wind gusts in the blue. It's been a rough day. Here is the Stormcast HD. This warm front is the culprit here, and it's not going anywhere. That means as storms shift east overnight, we'll get a little bit of a break. And in fact, tomorrow we'll get a little break from the storms, but it's going to be intensely warm and humid with highs in the middle 90s around the Sioux City Metro. Now, as we go into our Wednesday, more scattered showers and thunderstorms. A few of these could be severe with that boundary still in place, acting as a trigger mechanism for those strong storms. Tonight, 67, showers and thunderstorms continue. They could be severe until about 4 a.m. 95 degrees tomorrow, partly cloudy, and the humidity will be there too. Here's your 7-day forecast. 95 on Wednesday. Looks like the best chance of showers and storms in the evening. 89 for Thursday and Friday with more scattered showers and storms. And still 89 on Saturday with a chance of showers and thunderstorms. A little bit of a cool down as we go into Sunday and into Monday. I sure hope everyone has a weather radio. They've been very valuable today, and you can still pick them up at Area High V's, of course, instant watches and warnings for your location. Again, that watch goes till 4 a.m., the new severe thunderstorm watch. We'll be here watching as well.
And you've done such a good job keeping us up to date, and Scott as well. And you know, you're going to stick with it, of course.
My voice feels like it's hanging in there, but barely.
Thanks.
And again, you talk about the weather radios. How many nights have you preached? You don't know when you're going to need it. And boy, today was one of those days.
Well, I know your family, too, in the basement in an area, the safest place is an area where you can't have a TV. So those weather radios, man, come in handy.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with more.
Welcome back. We're going to switch to flooding now and take a quick look at some things we've been following earlier in the day. While folks in northeast Nebraska, of course, dealing with the tornado cleanup, there's also flooding to deal with up and down near Rock Rapids.
The Rock River in northwest Iowa is flooding at record levels, covering parts of Rock Rapids with floodwaters. And now the American Red Cross is serving Greater Iowa has mobilized this evening to provide shelter to communities in northwest Iowa who are evacuating residents due to the flooding. They're planning to have volunteers setting up shelters in communities across the area. Rock Rapids, the center point, of course, working with other communities to anticipate those shelter needs due to that excessive flooding in northwest Iowa that you can see there without much doubt. Thanks to a dedicated army of volunteers who have been working since Father's Day, things hopefully are improving.
We were able to hold the water back, and there wasn't a whole lot of damage there. We have some houses here in town that have water in their basements all the way to their main floor, but it could have been a whole lot worse.
Now, Vander Stoot says that the river peaks around 2 a.m. Monday morning at about 11 feet. above flood stage. The sheriff also says there were more than 100 volunteers out over the past several hours, the past day or so, helping to fight back those flood waters.
And folks in Hawarden doing their part to help their neighbors up the road in Rock Valley. They delivered 10,000 sandbags to the town this afternoon, but folks in Hawarden are keeping some on reserve in case they need them themselves.
We always get nervous when something like this happens, and we kind of keep track of where some pumps are at in case we would have to pump back over the levee.
Much more information on the flooding, and to see if your town is affected, we will keep that updated on our website. That's SiouxlandMatters.com. We'll have more coming up after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back again. We want to revisit our storm coverage from earlier because we do have a couple updates to bring you, and not good ones at that. Earlier we reported that there was one death associated with this storm. That happened in a rural area between Stanton and Cumming County, and now word that also there was one fatality of a child in Pilger. So there was a death coming out of that Pilger storm, and obviously terribly tragic news this evening that we don't want to pass along.
But we have been alerted of that and do want to pass it to you tonight, and we are thinking about those families, of course, as families across Siouxland tonight really dealing with a lot. Again, I want to show you some of the pictures from Pilger, one of the probably the hardest hit area from what we have seen so far tonight, where complete buildings were flattened. You can see the grain elevator, grain bin action there, completely twisted and turned. The folks there talked about just a mass of folks that came. In fact, at one point, probably too many people on hand to really deal with the damages. Those stripped trees, the water tower in Pilger was one of the things that is still standing. Officials there said 50 to 75% of the town has been seriously damaged, if not destroyed, by today's twister. But again, Pilger not the only area. Stanton with several homes destroyed today as well.
And subsequently, we know it did strike several residences in the area northwest and north of Stanton. The first residence that I made it to, we had 5 people trapped in the basement of a house. The entire house was destroyed. The entire farm was destroyed, and they collapsed on those 5, including 3 small children. Their homes, businesses, it's hard to describe. Those that know Pilger are going to be in a total shock when they see the actual damage. We've had an absolute outpouring of other agencies, law enforcement, EMS. We have state agencies on hand. I'm sure there'll be some federal action taken later in the week. But it's been wonderful having an overwhelming number of people here, actually probably too many.
And again, Governor Dave Heineman has declared parts of Nebraska a state of emergency, and the National Guard will be out tomorrow to help those crews.
In addition to those 2 deaths, there were several people injured, many critically. Those were taken between the Norfolk and the Wayne hospitals, so we'll be continuing to get updates from there as well. In the meantime, we're going to take another break. Fred will rejoin us. We'll check your weather one more time. Stick around.
As we look at radar, severe thunderstorm warnings for the Sioux City Metro. Those warnings have been expanded now as well to include almost all of central and western Woodbury County, as well as the southern part of Dixon County, southern Plymouth County, southern Union County. Included in that warning, a new severe thunderstorm warning for northwestern Thurston County until 11 o'clock tonight. The main threat here is going to be 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and hail up to 1.5 inches in diameter. If you are in these warned areas, which include Sioux City Metro, Sloan, toward Pender as well, and a good portion of Thurston County, you want to make sure to prepare right away for large hail, damaging winds, and lots of lightning. Seek shelter in a sturdy building and stay away from windows. Remember as well that a severe thunderstorm watch is in effect until 4 a.m. 95 degrees for tomorrow, so absolutely no treat after today's stormy weather. We'll be here watching, and we'll keep information at the bottom of your screen as long as the situation warrants.
Thanks, Fred. And we've been focusing so much of our news coverage in northeast Nebraska because there's such devastation there. But we know that people in Iowa are also dealing with the aftermath.
We took many calls and have talked with lots of folks through northwest Iowa, with both Dickinson and Emmett County receiving lots of wind damage from earlier today, power poles and trees for the most part. Earlier tonight, water was over the curbs in the community of Lamar's after heavy rains there. And as recently as 10 o'clock, Fred passed along word that parts of Remsen were without power because of winds and damage to electrical lines there. So we haven't forgotten the Iowa folks tonight, unfortunately. We would have liked to if you had a clean sweep tonight, but it's really been a sweep from southwest to northeast, hasn't it, Fred?
It has been. The damage reports really start there west of Norfolk and just moved right through the area, right through central and northeastern Siouxland, too. Lots of wind damage around Dickinson County tonight. Lots of reports of large hail, too.
Well, stay tuned as Fred keeps you updated.